All right, it's Docs That Rock. Welcome, SUZI QUATRO.
Hi, how you doing?
Doing so great. We love the documentary SUZI Q. It's one of our favorite eras in music. You know, that 70s sound coming out of England, and you were another one of those Americans that went to England. Just like Jimi Hendrix and the Pretenders and all of that.
Yes.
But
I know. I'm in good company.
I know. Let's talk a little bit about growing up in Detroit, because that's a whole nother musical, landmark there. I know you were in a musical family, and your brother was a booking agent, and you had the girl group with your sisters and all that. Talk about growing up in your early recollections of falling in love with music, and I know Elvis was one of them. But what was it that really hooked you on music?
Well, what hooked me on music was just being in that family. I watched my dad perform my whole life. But what hooked me on being who I am now, and who I became at 14 when I started in the band, was watching Elvis Presley on the Ed Sullivan Show when I was 5.5 going on 6. And the Ed Sullivan, and it was like, essential viewing for all American families. And he always brought up somebody at the end who was for the younger people. He said, now something for the youngsters. You might be a bit young, but I grew up with that show. And he brought in Elvis Presley. My older sister, by 9 years, was the exact age. So she started to scream. And I looked at her at 5.5 going, why are you screaming? I never forget it. And then I turned to the TV, and I literally got drawn in like a magnet into the TV. I was in there, in the zone. He was doing Don't Be Cruel. And the light bulb at that age, it happened. You can't write this stuff. You can't make it up. I went, I'm going to do that when I grow up. Don't ask me how I knew that. I have no answer for you. All I know is this is what happened, and it stayed with. It was a pivotal moment in my life, and that realization stayed with me from that moment on. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we definitely remember the Ed Sullivan Show. I was actually 5 when I saw the Beatles on there, and my family moved to England right after that. We lived up in Cambridge, so
okay.
I was
so
like...
the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh, yeah.
I was 14 when I saw the Beatles, so you're much younger than me, but it was a show that you really grew up with, and you took it in, but I never forget that effect that Elvis had on me. My mother used to call me Elvis when I was a kid.
Well, we definitely see the swagger in your playing. I mean, it was a sensation that crossed the nation. That's for damn sure. Now, obviously, you guys formed the girl group, and I know there was a lot of fun and experiences you guys had touring around, and of course your brother would put you on a lot of bills with a lot of the bigger acts coming through from England and across America. What are your best recollections of coming up pre the UK, as far as getting ready, as far as learning the ropes of performing live and dealing with all that?
Well, I had been in the band since the age of 14, and we went immediately professional. We went on the road. My dad gave us his blessings, because he was a musician too, so he didn't care. We went. The Pleasure Seekers were for want of a better word, we were a show band. We were on the nightclub circuit, so that's what we learned. We did 5 different sets a night. I was the absolute front person. I did 98% of the songs. We would switch instruments. We would do dance steps. It was a real training ground. And then we formed Cradle after that, which lasted about 18 months. And that was where we did I'm curtailing it now. We did a festival, one of the festivals. My brother didn't come in till like 1969, really, because he was just doing gigs himself, and then he became a promoter. But then my dad said, why don't you help your sisters? And so he put us on one festival as the Pleasure Seekers. And we died a death because we were in that false world of the club circuit doing show band. And these festivals, as you know, hippie trippy t-shirts, tie-dye, blah, blah, blah. So we were really out of step, got a big shock. Oh my God. You know, we went out there thinking, oh, they're going to love us. No, they didn't. So then the decision was taken to change the band around, which is okay. Bring my little sister in, who was the right age for that hippie trippy stuff. And she could sing, good singer. And I would go step back and just mainly play bass, but do a few songs. So, okay. And then in this band, which I was never actually happy with because it wasn't me. I was happy to learn my instrument, which I did. I became really good on my bass naturally. I wasn't doing the show with the bass, so I was just playing, you know. And then when the two married up, Elektra Records saw Cradle. I was at the back. I did 2 songs. They offered me a solo contract. They didn't like the band. Mickey Most came to Detroit in the same week, saw the band, didn't like the band, offered me a solo contract after seeing me sing 2 songs. So kind of a no-brainer that this was my time to move on, and that's what I did. And I came to England because Jack Holtzman had said to me from Elektra, he had said, oh, I would like to take you to New York and make you into the next Janis Joplin with a male band. Mickey Mo said, I'd like to take you to England and make you into the first SUZI QUATRO. So where would you go?
Yeah. Well, I know the whole glam, you know, period was just beginning, but when you first got to England, was there any culture shock? I know you were kind of sequestered in your own apartment as the documentary shows, but what was the biggest like difference, or what could you feel was about to begin?
Well, I knew my career was about to begin. I knew it was going to take some time. And it did take 18 months, but 18 months after I arrived, I had my first #1, so that's not bad going. But I had no blueprint. I didn't have a blueprint in America, and I didn't have a blueprint in England. I was just the square peg in the round hole, always. All my life, I was the square peg in the round hole. I was a tomboy. Sure, I'm a girl, but I never played that card. And I have to say, I stuck to, it's so difficult to explain. I stuck to me. I didn't compromise then. I don't compromise now. So even when I was in England and Mickey didn't know what to do with me, he signed me up. And he always called me his little, you know, secret weapon. And he always said to me, you're unique. Nobody plays bass like you. You're a girl. I'm going, am I? Because I don't do gender really. And he believed in me. He believed in me. So the differences in England were just before this 70s thing happened. I came over in 71, and it was kind of in a dead zone here. And I didn't see anything happening in particular. The radio was dire. The TV was dire. I didn't see any big bands happening. You got your Mark Bolins and a few people like that. But then everything started to change. As I started to come through, everything started to change. I'm not glam. Never have been. I don't wear makeup. I had on a plain black leather suit, and I'm based in the original 50s boogie-ish rock and roll. But I started having hits in that era. So as Mike Chapman said in the doc, you kind of lumped me in with it, but I've never been glam. But it was a movement at that time, you know. And all I can say is all the acts from that era, somehow America missed the beat on that, you know. They knew me, sure. I did many tours in America, and very successful tours, got a lot of radio play, sold quite a few albums, but I didn't have that catalog of the hit singles that were happening everywhere else in the world. But everybody knew me, you know, they knew me for sure. But it wasn't until Happy Days till they really went, oh, a girl with a bass, oh, and then they got it, you know. So America was about 4 years behind the rest of the world.
Sure. Well, you know, the music...
It's okay. You know, you were stuck in Eagle Land, you know. When I used to come back to America, after I'd been gone from 71, my first tour back again was 74 with my English band and hits under the belt. And I remember thinking, wow, every station I tuned to was Eagles, and I love the Eagles. But it was like you were stuck in this almost middle of the road, you know, take it easy. That's where America was. You didn't get me. You liked me. America played my records. I did great shows. Everybody loved me, but it didn't translate into the hit singles, you know?
Yeah.
Happy Days did that for me. Happy Days did it. It doesn't matter how it happened. It happened eventually.
Well, you know, we were stuck on AM radio here, you know, and it was tough to have a hit on AM radio. And in England, you had Top of the Pops, you know, a great show everybody watched. It's BBC. You didn't have too many choices, you know, and, you know, if you had a hit on Top of the Pops, you know, you were booming in England. Yeah.
Done. You had a hit, you had a hit.
Well,
so for me, it took Happy Days to cement me in the American public. And then, of course, Stumbling In finally came, and that was that was a million seller. I have the gold records here in my dining room, million seller in America. And it's funny that I had my biggest hit in America with not what I actually do. But saying that, it's an evergreen in my show, and I do love it. And any rock and roller with their salt can do a song like that.
Yeah.
Any of us can. But it wasn't what I was known for. But that and If You Can't Give Me Love are two of the favorites live. It's so strange, isn't it?
Well, certainly a classic song in the catalog. But let's talk about Mike Chapman, because obviously, you know, after you, he had a string of hits here in America, you know, with Blondie and even the sweet songs, Ballroom Blitz and The Knack and all that. You know, what was it about Mike and his songs? Obviously, they were very, in a sense, basic rock and roll. I mean, it was, like you say, it was the boogie, it was get down. They were easily sung along with and chanted. But what do you think it was about you and Mike that blended so well?
Well, Mike came, Mickey finally admitted to himself in 1972. I'd been there for like a year. I was on the Slade tour. I was supporting Thin Lizzy and Slade. I hadn't had a hit yet. And Mickey stuck me on the tour. I had 20 minutes at the beginning of the show. And Mickey finally realized, bless him, he's up there now, that he wasn't going to be able to get on record what he heard, what he knew I was. He just couldn't do it. He was, I don't know, almost too polite, you know. But we had our set together. I had my band. Things were taking shape. We did the tour, all original material, all boogie-based, some strange stuff. If you hear the first album, which is 90% my own songs, Mickey said, I've just signed these two songwriters, and maybe they can do that 3-minute single thing. So we came in and we did the whole set. And Mike went, yeah, you know, he's watching me, you know, I'm doing what I do, whatever it is I do. And he went that night. And based on what he heard and saw in that little rehearsal, he went away and wrote Can to Can. So there was a real communion of us. He understands me, Mike. He understands me to this day. He understands the wild side. He understands the mild side. I had the, which I was contracted for. I did most of the albums myself, you know. And I love songwriting. Mickey most always said to me, he said it all the time, your own songs are the meat of your act. He said it all the time, and I kind of get that. I kind of get what he means. Mike gave me that commercial edge, you know, that people knew me, but the meat. When we came to America, we didn't do the hits because they weren't hits there. So what we did on all my American tours was the album material, which went a storm. So I had almost two parallel careers, you know, crazy. Anyway, I don't know if I veered off your question enough, but Mike and I get along terrific. We still work together now. One quick story before we continue. I was putting down the vocal on a song called Mama's Boy on SUZI, another 4-letter word song. And I was doing that, and I was singing along, and then I stopped singing, and I said, Mike, he's in the control room. I said, Mike, do me a favor, will you? I said, will you please stop writing this kind of vocal where the singer doesn't even have a space to catch her breath? It's hard. And he said, Susie, you wrote this one. There's your answer. I went, fine. Okay, I get it. That's funny how that happens, you know? So this is what I'm trying to illustrate, is how we married up.
Yeah.
We married up. And there were lots of songs on B-sides, which were all my own, that should have been A-sides. And Mike said to me early on, when we first started recording together, he said to me, I don't want to put crap on your B-sides. Let's put really good songs. So we thought, good. So great songs are on our B-sides. And then because they were so good, Mike used to say in the studio, I have witnesses, he'd say, you know what? The last thing we want is for the radio station to flip this and make this the A-side. So let's put in a kind of crazy, beat that shouldn't be there, or an extra bar, and that's what he did.
Amazing.
That's the good. Yeah.
Well, I know that.
And it was okay. Yeah, we had a good relationship.
Sure.
We did.
Yeah, no, Mike is amazing. Now, that first tour with Slade, I know in the documentary you talk about how you watch Noddy Holder every night and kind of, learn something from them. Obviously, they started getting all glammed up themselves with the platform boots and the crazy outfits. But what was it about Noddy Holder? I mean, obviously he's got an amazing voice, but what did you learn from that first Slade tour?
Well, Noddy is a friend of mine. He always says, I watched you fall in love with Lenny. That was my first husband. I watched it, Susie. Yes, Noddy, you did. And he also said to me, never write a book. I said, why? He said, because you remember everything. I do. I watched Noddy's showmanship, but to be quite honest, it wasn't Noddy that showed me that. I enjoyed him. I liked what he did. I liked how he played with the people. But I had learned that in Detroit. And funny enough, I'm going to pick you an obscure band, but the band that I used to go see all the time in Detroit that I went, yes, look at your control of this audience, was Catfish. I don't know if you know them or not.
Yeah.
Bob Hodge?
Sure.
Not Bob Hodge. Oh God, what was his name? Catfish. They were just a funky blues band, and he used to just reach out and grab that audience. Noddy was more that I enjoyed him. I enjoyed what he did. I'd seen it done in Detroit, and I watched him doing it with his audience. I didn't have my hits yet, so I was waiting for my turn. And they always say, all of Slade will tell you this, as Don says, the drummer in the film, the fans did not like their support groups. They would throw things at them. They didn't like it. They just wanted Slade. Me, they loved. So I don't know why that is, but they did.
Well, it was a great package. I wish I could have been there. It sounded like an amazing time, and I'm sure
it was a great time.
I'm sure you could feel the scene just bubbling up, at that point, in England.
Sure.
And obviously David Bowie and Mark Bolan and all this was,
all the good
coming up.
Yeah. I know them all.
Yeah. Well, I know it was quite a move for you to come to America and star in Happy Days, which was filmed right up the street. We're right down the street from Paramount, the lot. But Gary Marshall, who passed away recently, obviously the creator of Happy Days, what did you learn from, working with Gary and, Henry Winkler and the crew at Happy Days?
I always knew I would act when the opportunity came. I am an artiste, and that's my only excuse. I am a true artiste. I will spread my wings and fly and do whatever this business pushes my way. I always knew I could do that. It was a great show. I'm honored to be part of it. It's in the Hall of Fame, fantastic.
Oh, yeah, number one.
What did I learn? I didn't learn anything different than what I learned a lot of the big acts I worked with. I'm still good friends with Ronnie. I'm still good friends with Henry. I actually said to Ronnie, not that long ago, we were talking on the phone, because I was curious. I said, Ronnie, can you tell me, did I ever feel like a new green actress and like I was just new to the show? Because I never felt that way. And he said, no, you didn't feel like a green actress, and you felt like you'd been in the show from the beginning, which is a strange thing. So I guess I did take to it quite naturally. And he also said to me, Ronnie, don't ever take acting lessons. And I thought he was insulting me. And I said, why? And he said, because what you do is natural, and you ruin it with lessons. Just act how you act. And I thought that was a great compliment.
Yeah. Well, obviously Ron Howard is super legend.
Henry's compliment to me at the end of the documentary is probably my favorite in the whole show.
Yeah.
He felt it. He meant it from the bottom of his heart, and so it went into me, you know. He's a lovely man, Henry, very nice man.
Well, back then, there was nobody cooler on TV than Fonzie. I mean, he was the Elvis of that generation, just, you know, on TV with the snap of his fingers and the leather jacket. Nobody was cooler than Fonzie. And you stood your ground. You were like Fonzie's equal. You know, as a female, like you say, gender didn't matter to you, but guess what? There were millions of American girls growing up that became the Runaways and the Go-Go's and the Pretenders and all of these groups.
Sure, it's all in the documentary. They all hands down like this thank me. It's quite humbling. And I'm not a bullshit artist. I can't say that I knew I was doing that. That would be lying. But what I do know I was doing was I was sticking to who I was. Come hell or high water, I was going to be me, and I wasn't going to compromise for nobody. No way, I'm me. And now, the wonderful thing called hindsight, you know, I realized about 3 or 4 years afterwards when these girls started trickling in, and every time I met one, they'd say, boy, oh boy, thank you. And I kind of, but now the film, the documentary has really opened my eyes to something I didn't realize. Cherie, she gave me an award. She's a friend of mine now. We became good friends. She gave me an award at She Rocks in January in Los Angeles. I asked her to give me my award, the Icon Award. And she went up to do her speech and she was crying. And I kind of went, what? Why are you crying? Then I was doing a Zoom about a month ago with her and Kathy Valentine on something, whatever they were doing, some sort of hosting show. And Kathy started to cry. And I went, and a few months ago, a friend of mine, I don't know if you know her or not, but it's quite a big band in Australia, the Baby Animals.
Yeah.
The lead singer's a big fan. Yeah, SUZI QUATRO. And we worked together many times in Australia. She ended up stopping by here on one of her trips. She stayed overnight. We did a little track in the studio. I took her up in my ego room in my home. And she was crying. So it kind of made me reassess what I've done. And what I now realize, and I didn't know I was doing it, but I realize it now, is that I gave all these square peg in a round hole women someplace where they could exist. It was okay to be different. And that's what I gave them. And I will take that to my grave. That's wonderful. But I didn't know I was doing it, but then I realized I did that. Just by staying who I am, I would not compromise. Mickey Most once said, he said it more than once, but he said it all the time. He said, you don't tell Susie to do anything. You can suggest. Which I really like. That makes me laugh every time I hear it. I guess that's pretty much me.
Well, it's
I will stick to
always in retrospect. I mean, whether it be Little Richard or Elvis, you didn't know the trailblazing you were doing at the time. It was just what you did.
Either. Yes, you're right. You just said that right. Those two people you just said, you think they knew what they were doing? You don't know it.
You have no idea.
You don't know it. You're just, like Elvis said, I don't sing like anybody. Okay, kind of my attitude. Who are you like? I'm not like anybody. That's exactly me. So all I can say is I'm one of those pioneer people who had enough balls and enough self-belief to stick to who I am. Done and dusted, and thank God I made it.
Yeah.
I just got to look at the time here because I got another one coming in a minute. Okay, we need to stop in like a few minutes. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Give us, what advice do you have to artists coming up today? Because you've obviously, done so much and persevered. The business is different, but as far as the mind state that you need to be in to survive in this business, what do you say?
You just asked a mouthful there. Okay, good question. It's a serious one. I am the first word that comes to mind about who I am is I am professional in every situation. I was taught that way. It's in my DNA. Not sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Sorry, not me. My ego was on the stage, not off the stage. I never played at playing bass. I played it. I don't do gender unless I need to. And every show that you see of me, I'm known for this. I will deliver the goods. You will get the best of me every time. I will not hold back. And if there's one person in 10,000 people that isn't going, I'll find him. And before he leaves, he'll be going. So my advice, you give up just about everything. You do. If you're going to be known and successful at this job, it takes all of your time. It takes total commitment. It takes constantly going to bed after the show, not speaking, sleeping 10 hours a night. You know, it's a profession. I take it seriously. My dad said to me when I was 14, when I started in the band, and he saw I was getting serious, and he said to me, when you go on that stage, you have an obligation. I don't care if it's 10 people or 10,000. Every person has put their hand in their pocket and paid money to see you. And that went to my heart, and that's how I feel. And if I can crawl and there's a show, I get to the stage, and I know it sounds dramatic, but I am the old school entertainer.
Yes.
That's what makes me tick, you know?
Well, in closing, we do a global music conference here in Hollywood every year. And part of that, we inspire the next generation by honoring the trailblazers. And we inducted the Runaways and had Joan Jett and Lita Ford, Cherie Currie. We've inducted, so many of the people that were influenced by you. And this year, we're going to honor you, and we want to bestow this IES honor.
Yay!
Yeah. We recognize the inspiration that you give, and while you didn't know you were doing it at the time, we see it every time Joan Jett's on stage, and Cherie Currie's got her new album, and I helped launch the Go-Go's, and we still see Kathy Valentine and Belinda Carlisle and everybody doing their thing, and every one of them's got a little bit of SUZI in them, just like you got a little bit of Elvis and Little Richard and everybody in you.
Correct.
And it's so important to keep that chain going. So it's our honor to bestow this honor on you, and we look forward to next time you're in LA to hand you the plaque and put it on your wall in the Ego Room.
Oh, I look so forward to that. That means a lot to me. And thank you very, very much. I enjoyed the conversation. You did your homework.
Yeah.
You got a brain.
Well, I'm forever enjoying the music, and the documentary is SUZI Quattro. Again, we bless you and thank you so much. Please keep the music coming. We definitely need more SUZI.
I can't stop, but thank you. Thank you very much.
Bless you.
Thanks a lot.
See you in LA. Take care.
Bye. Thank you.